Welcome to the channel. My name is Ian, and today I will be continuing my 6-part series on what if Marvel had all the rights from the beginning. We went over phase 3 of the Infinity Saga in the last episode. I will be structuring this timeline with movies and TV shows that come out in chronological order, so there is no actual movie release date year. Some projects will either be similar to what we actually got in the MCU, while others will be completely remade. Some will have very slight changes, and some will be original stories by me. Each project will have a mid-credit and post-credit scene that will help set up the next movie or the next couple movies. There are 3 sagas and 6 phases in total. Phase 4 will be the conclusion of the Infinity Saga. So with that being said, let's jump into this alternate 616 timeline. We start off Phase 4 in 2019 with Planet Hulk. After leaving the Battle of New York, Bruce travels through space in a Quinjet, not knowing where to go. Suddenly, his ship arrives at a wormhole that transports Bruce to a new planet called Sakaar. As he arrives on the planet, he transforms into the Hulk. When he lands, he is taken as a prisoner by the Red King. Hulk is forced to fight as a gladiator in return for his freedom. After fighting through the rounds and pleasing the audience, Hulk confronts the Red King asking for freedom. The Red King never had any intention of freeing his new champion and shocks the Hulk by putting him back in his cell. While in his cell, a woman named Kiera had visited Hulk to let him out. Hulk was confused because she was the Red King's lieutenant. She had told him that she had been waiting for the right time to take down the king and rule over Sakaar. Hulk and a few other warriors worked together to stop the Red King's rule, putting him in a prison that Hulk once sat in. Hulk and Kiara decided to rule over Sakaar together and will do what they can to make it a better place. The mid-credit scene shows a normal day after ruling over Sakaar. Hulk notices a strange man crashing down onto his planet. He jumps out a window from his castle to find this man. When Hulk arrives, he notices that Thor was the one who crashed. A very tired-looking Thor looks up at Hulk, reaching a hand out for his friend, saying, "We've got a lot to talk about, friend." The post-credit scene shows Kingpin has been running his crime empire for the last 2 years, but realizes that he needs some more help. He remembers that when he was in prison, he was able to get one of the guards to let him out. He calls Dex back up again, asking him if he wants to work with him full time. Taking place right after the events of Planet Hulk, we get Thor Ragnarok, also in 2019. For the past 3 years, Thor has been searching for the Infinity Stones. He learns the Collector has the Reality Stone, Vision holds the Mind Stone, and the Space Stone is on Asgard. However, he cannot locate the Power, Time, or Soul Stones. Thor returns to Asgard only to find Heimdall gone and a new Guardian, Scourge, is in his place. Shocked, he notices a massive golden statue of Loki in the palace square. Inside, Odin watches a play reenacting past events, assumingly altered in Loki's favor. Thor becomes suspicious and confronts Odin, who is revealed to be Loki in disguise. Furious, Thor demands Loki take him to their real father. They travel to Earth, but the place Loki left Odin has been destroyed. Loki is suddenly pulled into a portal, leaving Thor behind. Thor is led to the New York Sanctum, where he meets Doctor Strange. Strange agrees to help and opens a portal to Odin's location in Norway. The brothers reunite with Odin, who warns them of their sister Hela, the goddess of death. Odin dies and Hela immediately appears through a portal. Thor throws Mjolnir at her, but she destroys it effortlessly. Loki calls for the Bifrost, but Hela follows them and knocks them out of it. Thor and Loki land on a strange planet and encounter the Hulk. Hela arrives on Asgard, kills Frigga, and resurrects her undead army and wolf Fenris. Hulk and his partner Ciara agree to help Thor and Loki return to Asgard. Hulk transforms back into Bruce Banner to help fly the Quinjet. Upon returning, the group finds Asgard in ruins and Hela on the throne. Thor battles Hela but struggles until he sees a vision of Odin, who tells him his power comes from within. With newfound lightning powers, Thor turns the tide but cannot defeat Hela alone. He instructs Loki to release Surtur using his crown, knowing only Ragnarok can stop her. As Surtur destroys Asgard and kills Hela, Thor becomes king and decides to lead his people to Earth. The mid-credit scene shows Bruce is worried about heading back to Earth and what people will think of him, while also worrying about his duties on Sakaar. Ciara reassures him, saying that it's okay if he has to go back home and that he has been away from it for far too long. Turns out there was another smaller ship on board that could take her back to Sakaar. The two share a kiss as she heads back home. The post-credit scene shows Loki is wondering if it's such a good idea to head back to Earth. Thor doesn't think it would be, but he thinks if the god of mischief can change, then so can the people of Earth. In that moment, a large ship appears in front of them, as the ship belongs to the mad Titan Thanos. This next project is taking place a few months after the events of Thor Ragnarok. We go into Daredevil Season 3. Kingpin has nearly taken control of New York City by bribing the police, fire department, media, and lawyers. His only remaining obstacle is Daredevil, so he hires the deadly assassin Bullseye to eliminate him. Matt Murdock, having left his life as Daredevil behind, is convinced by friends to return and stop Kingpin for good. While searching Kingpin's home for evidence, Matt is ambushed by Bullseye and barely escapes with his life. With help from Karen and Foggy, Matt recovers and begins planning a counterattack. Foggy finds reports of other vigilantes, such as Iron Fist, Power Man, and Jessica Jones, who have also been opposing Kingpin's forces. Matt recruits them and forms a team to bring down Wilson Fisk. They confront Kingpin at a press conference, leading to a chaotic battle involving corrupt cops and Fisk's enforcers, Bullseye and Tombstone. The heroes defeat Bullseye and Tombstone while Matt personally takes down Kingpin in his penthouse. With Fisk and Bullseye in jail and Tombstone on the run, the heroes unite as the Defenders to protect the city. The mid-credit scene shows Tombstone is seen at a warehouse as he is assembling a group of people to try and replace Kingpin. Suddenly, the lights went out and a friendly neighborhood hero showed up and stopped him. The post-credit scene shows the Defenders are looking at the news, where it shows a strange circle-looking ship in the middle of New York as they see Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man fighting some aliens. Avengers Infinity War, taking place in 2019. Thanos and the Black Order have invaded Thor's ship and killed half of the Asgardians on board. He threatens to kill Thor before Loki unless he gives him the Tesseract. Loki hands over the cube before Hulk appears and starts attacking Thanos. With just one Infinity Stone, Thanos single-handedly takes care of the Hulk. Thor makes eye contact with his friend Heimdall, who uses dark magic to send the Hulk back to Earth to warn the Avengers. After Hulk had left, Thanos killed Heimdall, broke the Tesseract, and now has both the power and the Space Stone. In an attempt to kill Thanos, Loki tries to stab him, but Thanos stops him and breaks his neck. Thor is forced to watch all of this happen as Thanos leaves, exploding the ship, and Thor is thought to be dead. Hulk lands on Earth, crashing through the New York Sanctum as he meets Doctor Strange and Wong. He tells them that Thanos is coming and that they need to prepare. The beginning of Infinity War is almost kind of the same. Steven and Bruce locate Tony Stark in the park with Pepper, explaining the situation, leaving Tony in shock. They head back to the Sanctum where Wong tells them about the Infinity Stones. Tony suggests destroying the Time Stone, but Steven won't do it because he took an oath to protect it. Tony is about to call Steve Rogers, but is interrupted when they hear something large outside. They see a circle-shaped ship hovering over the ground, with two members of the Black Order arriving on the ground. Ebony Maw and Cull Obsidian had come to take the Time Stone from Doctor Strange. Bruce transforms into the Hulk and has an epic battle with Cull Obsidian. Iron Man shows off his new nanotech suit, allowing him to make weapons that deal much more damage. During the fight, Hulk is about to be killed by Cull when Spider-Man shows up and stops his axe. Both Bruce and Peter work together to take down Cull. They both regroup with Tony and Steven to stop Ebony Maw. Meanwhile, out in space, the Guardians of the Galaxy and Nova are heading to a distress call about Thanos. They find the remains of the ship and crash into Thor. Bringing him on board and waking him up, Thor tells them what happened with Thanos, and Gamora tells him her connection to Thanos. Thor tells him he needs to get a new hammer to stop Thanos, with Rocket, Groot, and Nova going with him. The rest of the Guardians head to Nowhere to try and stop Thanos from getting the Reality Stone. Tony, Bruce, Peter, and Steven return to the Avengers compound and meet up with Captain Marvel, Ant-Man, and Wasp. While working on a plan, Hank asks if anyone can contact Thor. Not knowing the truth, Bruce tells them that Thanos killed Thor when he took the Space Stone. This drives the Avengers to devise a plan to stop Thanos for good. They plan to destroy one of the stones so Thanos can't get them all, so they plan to destroy Vision's stone. All they need to do now is find him. Turns out Vision has been searching for Wanda for the last year to see if he can help her mental state so that she can use her powers again. This is when Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight showed up, attacking Vision and trying to take the stone. Suddenly, a rescue team composed of Captain America, Black Widow, Falcon, Hawkeye, and War Machine arrives to stop the members of the Black Order. They barely escape and take Vision back to the compound. The Guardians arrive at nowhere to try and stop Thanos from getting the Reality Stone. They struggle to work together as a team but end up killing Thanos. Turns out this was an illusion created by the Reality Stone. Thanos takes Gamora back to his ship for questioning. The other Avengers arrive back at the compound, excited to see everyone, with Vision being tested on how to take the stone out. They realize with all the smartest brains in the room, they cannot find a way to remove the stone without killing Vision. So they all head to Wakanda to meet T'Challa and his sister Shuri while reuniting with Bucky. So Tony, Bruce, Hank, Janet, Peter, and Shuri work together to remove the stone from Vision's head. Back on Thanos' ship, Gamora is being lectured by her adopted father. He then shows her sister Nebula being tortured and that he would stop the torture if she tells him where the Soul Stone is, which he tasked her to do many years ago. She eventually breaks and gives up the location of the Orange Cosmic Stone on Vormir. Soon arriving on Nidavellir, Thor finds that an old dwarf named Eitri is the only one left on the ring. Thanos had threatened to kill every dwarf on the ring unless he made a device that could harness the power of the stones. He just killed them all anyway, but left Eitri alive. His hands were left damaged. Thor convinces Eitri that he can still make weapons without his hands, so they begin making a king's weapon called Stormbreaker. Nebula escapes her torture and sends a message to Mantis telling her to meet her on Earth. A portal opens up on Vormir with Thanos and Gamora exiting it. They head up a mountain where they find the Guardian of the Stone, who turns out to be the Red Skull. He tells Thanos that the stone needs a sacrifice to receive it. He throws his daughter Gamora off a ledge. A soul for a soul was required. Thanos wakes up in a puddle of water with the Soul Stone in his hand. Back in Wakanda, the group is working on Vision to get the Mind Stone out, with Captain Marvel on standby to destroy it. While doing some recon, Carol notices a ship entering Earth's orbit. Flying closer to it to see it's the Guardians of the Galaxy. Carol recognizes them and asks why they are here. Star-Lord tells her he is here to save Gamora, whom Thanos took. With Carol in confusion, telling him that Thanos isn't on Earth yet, suddenly another larger ship arrives behind them and lands in Wakanda. Captain Marvel tells the Guardians to follow her to help the Avengers. T'Challa tells the Avengers to prepare for battle. They meet where the ships landed, and out by the barrier, the Black Order, who had escaped their previous fights with the Avengers, are trying to break through. T'Challa tells them to leave, or else there will be nothing but blood and dust for Thanos. Proxima Midnight releases the Outriders, an army of aliens that feast on blood, to break through the barrier. With some of the Outriders breaking through, others found a way around. T'Challa opened the barrier and led the charge into battle with Captain America. An all-out war is going on with Wakanda and the Black Order. Ebony Maw leads some of the Outriders and the rest of the Black Order to target Doctor Strange. Some of the Avengers offer to help Stephen, but he is confident enough to take them all down. At that moment, he is ambushed by more Outriders, with Maw holding him in place and Cull Obsidian knocking him out. Maw tries to take the stone, but a spell protects it, so Cole takes the Eye of Agamotto and leaves Stephen unconscious. The Outriders outnumbered the heroes left and right. When all hope seemed lost, Thor showed up with Groot, Rocket, and Nova at an epic entrance using his new weapon to kill the Outriders. Thanos shows up further away from the battle, where Ebony Maw gave him the Eye of Agamotto to break open and take the Time Stone. Now with 5 Infinity Stones, he makes his way towards the battle to take the Mind Stone. Walking through the battlefield, he takes on Wakandans left and right, leaving a bloodbath in his wake. Each Avenger and Guardian attack with all they have, but he can do anything with the 5 stones. Looking outside the lab, Carol sees Thanos is coming and decides to fly outside to help. She has an epic one-on-one fight with Thanos, but with the strength of the Power Stone and the vast access of the Space Stone, he delivers a powerful punch that knocks her out and sends her through a portal that takes her out into space. As Vision is having surgery on the stone, he screams in pain, telling the Avengers to flee and save themselves as a large blast from Thanos blows up the lab. Peter, who had his spider sense, had avoided the blast. Thanos walked in looking for Vision, and as the smoke cleared, Spider-Man was the only thing standing in the way of the Mad Titan. Peter jumped into the air, shooting his webs at Thanos, only for him to pull Peter closer to him, with Peter dodging the attack. A Power Stone blast went straight for him as he dodged it using all of his web fluid to web Thanos up. But the webs weren't strong enough to hold Thanos. Peter grabs Vision and tries to escape the lab, but Thanos uses the Time Stone to rewind everything. Thanos grabs Peter in one hand and Vision in the other and says to Peter,
"For an insect, you're quite a strong little one."
Holding Peter in his hand, he walks over to where the hole in the lab was and uses the Power Stone to send Peter flying. Thanos looks at Vision as he makes a final attack with the Mind Stone, but using the 5 stones, he makes a barrier for himself as he pulls out the last stone, killing Vision in the process. As Thanos looks at the power he has, a blast from Thor strikes Thanos. Getting back up, he fires his blast with Thor using his full power, hitting Thanos right in the chest. Thor pushes Stormbreaker further into his chest. Thanos whispers to Thor,
"You should have gone for the head,"
as he snaps his fingers, completing his mission to bring balance to the universe by wiping out half of all life. Thor is confused as to what Thanos did as he portals away. As people around the battlefield started feeling weird, Steve looked towards Bucky, who started to turn to dust. Soon, other members of the Avengers would turn to dust. Falcon, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, War Machine, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Star-Lord, Groot, Drax, and Mantis. Soon, other Avengers would turn to dust as well. Falcon, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, War Machine, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Star-Lord, Groot, Drax, and Mantis. Half of the heroes who had protected the Earth have now been dusted. Bruce, Tony, Hank, and Janet woke up and saw the body of Vision on the ground, lifeless. They saw the hole in the wall with people turning to dust. We then see Thanos walking outside, sitting on a porch, and smiling at a half-living universe. The mid-credit scene shows the Fantastic Four have entered the negative zone and are confused on how to get back. In the distance, we see a winged creature flying over them as the ruler of this dimension. Annihilus is about to start hunting them. The post-credit scene shows out in the emptiness of space, a strange cosmic energy is making its way towards Earth as a powerless Jean Grey looks up towards the sky. The next movie in this phase is similar to how Ant-Man and the Wasp was, where the movie takes place during the events of Infinity War. This next movie will be taking place a couple days before the events of Infinity War. The Fantastic Four, the Negative Zone. After Galactus' past threat, the Fantastic Four developed devices to detect cosmic dangers. Reed and Sue's young son Franklin begins manifesting powerful psychic abilities. Reed receives an alert about a dangerous space rift that could threaten Earth. The team builds a new ship called the Fantasticar to investigate and repair the rift. As they approach, they are pulled into a strange reverse dimension, the Negative Zone. While exploring, a winged alien abducts Sue, taking her to the lair of the villain Annihilus. Annihilus questions Sue and reveals his plan to conquer Earth through the rift. The rest of the team battles alien forces while Reed worries about Franklin back on Earth. Meanwhile, Franklin watches troubling news about Iron Man and Doctor Strange battling unknown aliens. Sue struggles to escape a power-adapting cage while Annihilus grows obsessed with Earth. The team storms Annihilus' tower and rescues Sue after an intense fight. They hatch a risky plan involving Johnny generating extreme heat to seal the rift. Johnny pushes his power to the limit, turning his flames white hot to wield the portal shut. The team escapes through the rift just as Johnny seals it behind them, trapping Annihilus in the Negative Zone. Back at the Baxter building, they sense something is wrong. A now 9-year-old Franklin greets them, shocked, and says he thought they died 5 years ago during Thanos' attack. The mid-credit scene shows Franklin telling his family that he had been looking into different ways to find his parents by using strange dimensions like jump gates and the quantum realm. He tells them about Thanos and how he attacked Earth and used things called the Infinity Stones to wipe out half of all life. Reed is confused on how he didn't detect this threat, but Sue reassures him, saying it happened when they were gone. Ben was confused on how this is possible since they were only in the negative zone for a few hours. Franklin said he tried doing some research on the rift but could never get close to it. The Fantastic Four decide to head to the Avengers compound to check on Earth's mightiest heroes. The post-credit scene shows Scott Summer is living a normal life, no longer a mutant, one morning waking up to look in the mirror, seeing his eyes beginning to glow red. He starts freaking out as red concussive blasts emerge from his eyes. He instinctively puts on these red glasses that he forgot he had and then whispers to himself, Jean. Our next movie is actually going to be taking place during the events of the blip. X-Men Dark Phoenix, taking place in 2020. After the fallout of Captain America Civil War, mutants had lost their powers until the Phoenix Force returned to Earth. The cosmic entity found Jean Grey, restoring her abilities and reversing Wanda's spell. As a result, many X-Men regained both their powers and memories. They reunited at the X-Mansion where Jean awaited them, though she seemed unstable. When Scott tried to kiss his wife, she pulled away and fainted. Inside, Hank discovered her powers were tied to the ancient Phoenix Force, which had created a dual personality in Jean. Jean awoke, torn between joy over restoring her family and fear of her own uncontrollable power. She warned Scott that Earth needed to die for a better one to be reborn. When Scott tried to reason with her, she transformed into Phoenix and fled. Magneto appeared, declaring that Jean must be killed to prevent another global catastrophe. Though Scott wanted to save her, Magneto insisted death was the only solution. Meanwhile, mutants worldwide began regaining their powers due to Jean. The X-Men tracked Jean to a scene of chaos and destruction where even Storm's full power couldn't stop her. Jean overpowered everyone, and Wolverine told Scott he had to end it. With help from Rogue and Colossus, Scott reached Jean, and heartbroken, he killed her with his optic blast. The X-Men mourned Jean, while the Phoenix Force left Earth in search of a new host. The mid-credit scene shows after the battle of X-Men vs. Jean, a man in a suit walks up and sees the body of the deceased Jean laying in a crater. He pulls out a syringe and draws some blood from her body. He puts the blood in a briefcase, and on the case it says Essex Corp. The post-credits scene shows a therapy group session going on that is led by Steve Rogers. There, he tells people that it can be hard to move on, but they have to move on or else Thanos would have killed everyone. As the session ended and Steve was packing up, Scott shows up and tells him, I only caught the last bit of that, but that was some good stuff. Steve turns around and smiles. They both shake hands, with Steve saying, I heard about what happened. I'm sorry about Jean. Listen, if you need anything from me, I'll be here to help. Scott thanks Steve as he tries to hold it together. Steve apologizes to Scott for what happened all those years ago with Wanda. Scott is surprised to hear this and accepts his apology. Now, you might have already noticed that some of these projects are either very short or not very long. There's not a whole lot of detail, but some of it is kind of getting straight to the point. That's not going to be the case for this next movie, because this next movie is Avengers Endgame. This movie takes place in 2024. Back at the Avengers compound with the ones who survived the snap, Tony, Hank, and Janet are still recovering from the battle while the rest devise a plan. Hulk has been in control to let Bruce heal. Rocket, Nebula, and Carol are in the Guardian's ship scanning planets to find Thanos' whereabouts. After a few days of searching, Rocket found a planet that had experienced a similar energy signature to the Infinity Stones. Nebula, Hulk, Captain America, Thor, Rocket, and Captain Marvel all headed out into space to find Thanos and reverse what he had done. They found Thanos with no weapons, army, or battleships when they arrived. We see Thanos making dinner for the evening with much damage done to his left side when Captain Marvel charges in, attacking him. The Avengers hold him down, cutting off his hand. Rocket flips over to see that the stones were gone. Thanos tells them he used the stones to destroy the stones. Nebula tells them Thanos isn't a liar, and Thor cuts his head off. The Avengers return home and go their separate ways out of grief and loss. 5 years later, Hank and Janet are the only ones still working at the Avengers compound. They have been studying the quantum realm to see if they can use this to help humanity. One day while they were working, they got a visit from Steve, who told them he got a visit from Scott Summers at his therapy group. Hank and Janet were surprised after remembering what the X-Men did all those years ago. Steve then asked why they continued to work in this place. Hank tells him because it helps take his mind off all the people he couldn't save, and Janet had given up trying to get him to leave 2 years ago. Suddenly, a call came from the front door where the Fantastic Four asked to talk to the Avengers. Steve thought it was an old message, but Janet said it was the security cameras. The Fantastic Four came in trying to understand how to undo what Thanos did, but Hank was confused about how they were alive. Reed tells them they got stuck in a place called the Negative Zone, where they were affected by time dilation and were stuck there for a few hours. Johnny says it was like a form of time travel. Hank asks Reed if he has ever studied the quantum realm before. Reed says he hasn't, but is a quick study and could figure it out. Hank wondered if the quantum realm could be used to travel through time, because if the stones are in the past, they could get them and snap their fingers. Reed was interested in this, as they went straight to the lab. Ben wonders what happened to the Avengers, as Steve tells them that after they returned from killing Thanos, they disbanded and went their own separate ways. However, Steve tells them they must get the team back together if they can crack time travel. So Steve, Janet, Johnny, and Sue head out to convince the Avengers to come back and help. They first went to Tony, who now has a daughter with Pepper and has stopped doing hero work. They tell him about time travel, but he doesn't believe it's possible. They say that Hank and Reed are already working on it. Tony doesn't care and wants to put all that to rest. They leave without getting help from Tony, but they go to another genius, Bruce Banner, who has combined Bruce's intelligence and the Hulk's strength into one being. Bruce was willing to help and went with them back to the compound. Later that night, Tony wakes up to get something to drink, with Pepper turning on the lights to confront him. Pepper tells him that trying to get Tony to stop being a hero has been the hardest challenge of her life, but on this kind of scale, they will need Iron Man. Hank, Reed, and Bruce worked on a prototype quantum tunnel, but struggled to get it to work. Janet contacted their space members, Rocket, Nebula, Nova, and Captain Marvel, to return to the compound. Steve steps outside the compound to think, with Tony showing up to help figure out time travel. Tony tells Bruce he will step in, and he should go with Rocket to get Thor. Bruce and Rocket head to Norway, where Thor and the rest of the Asgardians, called New Asgard, have begun to rebuild their home on Earth. When they get there, they meet up with Ciara, who is glad to see Bruce. Ciara told Bruce that after hearing what happened with Thanos, she would return to New Asgard and leave her old life behind. Bruce was happy about this and noticed that she had a small green child next to her. She introduced her son Scar, saying Bruce is the father. They were both shocked at this, as Rocket asked if they could go see Thor. Ciara told them that he would be in the gym if they were looking for him. Bruce and Rocket head to the gym and see Thor meditating. Lightning emits around his body, and Bruce calls out his name. Thor opens his eyes, and thunder strikes the entire land of New Asgard. He stands up, happy to see them both, and hugs them. Thor, looking stronger than ever, is in his prime and has been able to tap into more of his godly powers. Thor asks why they were here and if they want to join him for a quick session. Bruce tells them that they are here to help undo what Thanos did. Thor's face grew angry as he remembered everything Thanos had taken from him. Bruce told him that they couldn't do this without him, and if they could get this time travel thing to work, everything would be fixed. Thor is just trying to move on from the past and be the new king of Asgard. Thor refuses to help and sits back down to meditate. Rocket tells him there's protein powder on the ship. Thor opened his eyes as they headed back to the compound. A weapons dealer is selling vibranium weapons to criminals from an abandoned warehouse somewhere in Africa. Suddenly, the lights went out, and tiny purple eyes emerged from the darkness. The dealers were being taken out left and right, leaving only panther claws in their chest. The lights come back on, and we see Black Panther in an upgraded gold and black suit. Steve is the one who turned on the lights and went over to talk to him. T'Challa was in no talking mood, but was interrupted by Steve saying they need his help and that they can bring his family back. T'Challa doesn't believe it is possible and takes off his mask. Steve tells him that everyone needs some hope now and then. The Avengers have reunited at the compound and finished the time machine. However, they need someone to test the machine. T'Challa volunteers to test the machine and suits up in a new quantum suit. He gets sent back in time and sees his mother and sister again from the shadows. He gets pulled back to the present and confirms the machine works. The time heist has been set in motion, and now they need to figure out when and where the stones were used in their history. They learn that in 2012, they can find the Mind, Space, and Time Stone in New York. In 2013, they can find the Reality Stone at Nowhere with the Collector. And in 2015, they can find the Power and Soul Stone. They break up into teams to go after the stones. Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, and Black Panther would head to 2012. Thor and Nova would head to Nowhere to get the Reality Stone. Rocket and Nebula would get the Power Stone, while Ant-Man and Wasp would go get the Soul Stone in 2015. Captain Marvel and the Fantastic Four would stay back at the compound and ensure the machine works. They shrink down through the quantum realm and take a trip down memory lane. Bruce heads for the Time Stone, meets the Ancient One, and asks her to give him the Time Stone. She rejects the offer and pushes Bruce into his astral projected form. In 2013, Thor and Nova arrive at Nowhere and go after the Reality Stone. With Nova being a member of the Nova Corps for Xandar, they ask the Collector to hand over the Ether or else he would go to jail, for he was holding onto an artifact that could destroy the universe. In 2015, Rocket and Nebula arrive on Morag to get the Power Stone, while Ant-Man and Wasp take the Guardian's ship to Vormir. Nebula tells Rocket they need to hurry because this was the year Thanos started looking for the Infinity Stones. We then see 2015 Nebula and Gamora taking over a planet and getting called back to see Thanos. Thanos arrives telling his daughters they will be dispatched to Ronin's ship to collect the Power Stone. Suddenly, Nebula sees footage of her future self and gets taken onto Thanos' ship. From a distance, Tony watches the Avengers stop Loki and has T'Challa pretend to be a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. who will take the stone off at the Avengers' hands. Steve goes after the Mind Stone by telling S.H.I.E.L.D. members he is with them as he whispers, "Hail Hydra," in one of their ears. T'Challa gets the stone and heads for a door with the Hulk bursting through it since he had to take the stairs. The case breaks open and Loki takes the Tesseract to disappear. Bruce tries to convince the Ancient One to give him the Time Stone. This is when the Ancient One shows Bruce that if she gives up the stone, then it would endanger her reality. For if the stone were removed, it would create a branch timeline. Bruce tells her that it would be like they never left if they put the stones back where they took them. She tells him they will have to survive whatever they are doing, and that the Sorcerer Supreme must protect the Time Stone. That's when Bruce told her that Doctor Strange had protected the Time Stone with his life, but was ambushed and had taken the Time Stone from him. And before he could go after it, he was turned to dust. This makes the Ancient One question if Stephen will become the Sorcerer Supreme, but Bruce continues to convince the Ancient One, and she gives him the stone. Back on Thanos' ship, we see Nebula getting plugged into a machine that allows Thanos to see future Nebula's memories. Rocket and Nebula wait outside for Star-Lord so they can knock him out and take a device from him to open the doors to the Power Stone. They retrieve the Power Stone and head back, but before they do, Nebula gets her network linked to her past self and passes out as Thanos views the memories of the future Nebula. Present Nebula wakes up and goes to warn Hank and Janet, but it is too late. Past Thanos arrives on Morag and captures Nebula. Tony tells Steve they blew it, and the Space Stone slipped through their hands. Steve asks if there's another chance with the stone. T'Challa reminds them that they only have enough particles to get back home. Tony remembers when the stone and particles were simultaneously at the same place. Steve gives the scepter to T'Challa and tells him to return to the compound. Tony and Steve head back to 1990 at a S.H.I.E.L.D. facility where the Tesseract would be used in a project called Pegasus to create a light-speed engine. Tony finds the cube but runs into his father. Steve distracts a young Hank Pym and takes some particles. While trying to escape, Steve has to hide in an office and reveals that it is Peggy Carter's office. We then see Peggy Carter in another office looking much older from when we last saw her. Steve looks at her through the glass and thinks about how great time travel can be. Tony and Steve regroup and head back to the compound. Nebula is being guarded by her sister Gamora, who tries to get her to rebel against Thanos with her. But Nebula shows up and starts attacking her future self. Her past self takes some of the Pym particles and hands them over to Thanos, while also disguising herself as her future self. On Vormir, Hank and Janet make it to the mountain where the Red Skull greets them and tells them the requirements to get the stone. One of them will need to sacrifice themselves for the stone. Hank and Janet fight each other to show that they are willing to die for each other. In the end, Janet calmed Hank down long enough to tell him, "Look after Hope for me, everything is going to be okay." She takes off her suit and falls off the cliff. as a bright light flashes. As Hank wakes up in a puddle with the Soul Stone in his hand, he tries to hold it together. The Avengers each make their way back to the compound, and when they return, Hank falls to his knees and lets it all out. They look around to see that Janet isn't with them and put two and two together. The Avengers head out to a nearby lake and mourn Janet's loss. Hank gets angry, gets big, and throws a tree into the distance. Tony, Bruce, and Rocket work on making a nano gauntlet with all the Infinity Stones that they had gathered. Once it was ready, the real question came up. Who was going to snap their fingers? Thor suggests he should do it because for the last 5 years, he's been working as hard as he can to become the strongest version of himself, but Steve told him to wait. Bruce looks at them and says he has to do it because the radiation that comes off the gauntlet is gamma radiation. They all agree and lock the compound down as Bruce puts on the gauntlet. The immense power from the stones made Bruce struggle a bit, but he could use his strength to snap his fingers and reverse what Thanos did. While this happened, Nebula logged in the time coordinates and brought Thanos and his army to the present. They have no idea if it worked or not, but they don't have time to worry about that as Thanos launches an attack on the compound. The Avengers are buried under the rubble of the compound, with Thanos being teleported down to the ground. Nebula asks what her father will do, with him sitting down and saying,
"Wait."
Tony wakes up Steve and they walk over to Thor. They all look down at Thanos and make their way towards him. Thanos gives them a speech about how they couldn't live with their own failure, and that with the stones they had collected, he will use them to create a new universe from the ashes of this one. The battle begins with them charging at Thanos as the rest of the Avengers make their way out of the rubble. Hank finds the gauntlet and takes it with them. Tony and Thor do combo attacks, but it does nothing to Thanos. Thor gets ready for another battle with Thanos as lightning bolts strike him. Thor powers up and the battle begins. Thor's attacks are lightning fast and strong, but Thanos can take them as an epic battle occurs. Thor still gets hit a few times, and Thanos is about to kill Thor, but Captain America uses his shield to attack Thanos. The Mad Titan makes his way to the Super Soldier as Thanos' sword damages the shield and he cuts it in half. The rest of his army lands and is gathering behind Thanos. Captain America gets up, tightens what's left of his shield, and walks towards the army. Suddenly, he hears a voice in his earpiece. It's Sam's voice saying, "On your left." Suddenly, a portal opens up, and War Machine, Bucky, Okoye, and Shuri leave it. Sam flies out, and other portals open. Doctor Strange and the Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man, Hawkeye, Black Widow, Wakandan warriors, Asgardian warriors, Wong with some sorcerers. Pepper shows up in her iron rescue suit, and the Ravagers. Doctor Strange walks over to Wong and asks him if that's everyone. Wong opens up one last portal inside the Baxter building, and the Fantastic Four walk out. Hank becomes giant, holding Bruce, Rocket, and T'Challa, emerging from the rubble. Captain America looks back at the army, then at Thanos, and in a loud voice, he screams, "Avengers, assemble!" and the battle for Earth begins. The battle continues and everyone reunites on the battlefield and is happy to see each other again. Nebula shows up with Gamora, who has agreed to work with the Avengers and eliminate Thanos. Peter is shocked to see Gamora again, but she doesn't remember him and goes back into battle. Steve and Bucky reunite and take down the aliens side by side. The Thing and Mr. Fantastic are taking down some bigger enemies while Spider-Man is going through the Black Order with Doctor Strange. Nova, War Machine, and the Human Torch are taking down the Leviathans in the sky, and the original Avengers team, minus the Wasp, are attacking Thanos together using every skill they have and working like a well-oiled machine. Thanos demands his ship rains fire, and large missiles of energy hit the ground, taking out people left and right. Suddenly, the attacks stop. They begin to target upwards towards the sky. Captain Marvel comes crashing down, tanking every hit from the blast and smashing through Thanos' ship. Unfortunately, the blast took out some of the heroes on the ground. Thanos looks up at Captain Marvel as she looks down at him. A few feet away, the gauntlet lies on the ground and Thanos goes after it. Tony goes to stop him, but is knocked out. Thor and Steve show up attacking him, but are taken down again. He grabs the gauntlet and puts it on and is about to snap his fingers as Captain Marvel stops him. Thanos headbutts Captain Marvel, but it does nothing. She continues to attack him, but he takes out the Power Stone and punches her, sending her flying. The Avengers look on at Thanos as he puts the stone back in the gauntlet. Suddenly, a red concussive blast hits Thanos. He gets off the ground, looks up, and he sees some people falling from the sky. Members of the X-Men show up to take down Thanos. Storm uses her lightning to shock Thanos as Rogue catches Wolverine and Gambit, throwing them at Thanos. Gambit gets on Wolverine's shoulders and charges up his claws to become indestructible exploding claws. His claws pierce Thanos' armor and explode. Tony gets back up and connects the gauntlet to his suit, allowing the stones to go to his suit. Reed goes after Thanos and stretches around him and holds him down. Thanos looks at Tony as the stones assemble on his hand, and Tony snaps his fingers. Thanos' army slowly turns to dust, with Thanos turning to dust last. Tony walks over to a place where he can sit down and shows us that the power of the stones was too much for a normal human. Rhodey and Pepper show up next to Tony to comfort him, with Pepper telling him it's okay to rest now, and that her and Morgan will be okay. Tony then passes away as we see the Avengers, the Guardians, the Fantastic Four, and the X-Men look towards Tony as they realize his sacrifice. We then cut to scenes of the heroes reuniting with their families, like T'Challa back in Wakanda with his mother and sister, Hawkeye visiting his family along with Natasha, Peter swings back to New York to see MJ, and Hank holding his daughter Hope in his arms. We head to Tony's house to see a recorded message with Tony talking to Pepper and Morgan. They all head out for a funeral to honor Tony Stark and Janet. After the funeral, we see Thor back in New Asgard, where he has now taken on the mantle of king and is ruler of New Asgard. Peter is looking for Gamora, who had run off while everyone was surrounding Tony. Hulk, Beast, and Mr. Fantastic have rebuilt the quantum tunnel, and Steve is about to return the stones to put them in their proper places. Sam offers to accompany him, but Steve tells him this is a solo mission. Bucky can sense what Steve is going to do and hugs him goodbye. Steve takes the case, stands on top of the quantum tunnel. He is sent back in time, but doesn't return. Bruce and Reed are confused as Bucky tells everyone to look over by the lake. Sam walks over to an elderly Steve Rogers who is sitting on a bench. Sam asks what happened with Steve, saying that after he put the stones back, he went back to his own time and lived his life with Peggy. Sam was happy for him, but was upset that the world had just lost Captain America. Steve opens up a case that holds a new vibranium shield and gives it to Sam. Sam takes the shield and says he will do his best. We then see Steve and Peggy back in the 1940s dancing inside a house as they share a final kiss. Our next movie is Spider-Man Brand New Day, taking place in 2024. Peter Parker returns from being dusted and reunites with his wife MJ. He explains how Thanos wiped out half the population and the Avengers brought everyone back. Their reunion is interrupted by police sirens as a new villain, Sandman, robs a bank nearby. Peter hesitates to leave MJ, but she encourages him to go. Peter suits up and swings into action through the city. Sandman is shocked to see Spider-Man alive. Peter struggles in his attempt to stop Sandman, who escapes with the money. Peter realizes many new villains have emerged in the time he's been gone. He returns home to find MJ researching these new threats. Together they learn about multiple villains: Sandman, an electricity-powered man, a sewer-dwelling lizard, and a cat burglar. Troubled by what he's missed, Peter goes to check in on Aunt May. He's heartbroken to discover that she died in 2021, 2 years after he disappeared. Peter visits her grave, bringing her flowers and apologizing for not being there. A man named Martin Lee approaches, revealing he knew May through a shelter called Feast. Martin explains that May worked there during the blip to help others in need. Peter is moved by the good his aunt did before passing. Martin invites Peter to visit Feast anytime. While swinging home, Peter responds to an alarm at a museum. He finds masked men with glowing weapons stealing important files. Peter confronts them, but their weapons had a strange effect on Peter that allowed the demon gang to escape. Days later, Peter visits Martin at Feast for advice on time management and failure. Martin gives Peter some solid advice and warns him to be careful. When asked about knowing anything about this strange demon gang, Martin tensed up but denies knowing anything about them. While patrolling, Peter is ambushed by a man in a skull mask using an electric rope to trap him. The attacker, Taskmaster, copies Peter's fighting style, but still couldn't bring down Spider-Man. He manages to escape through a smoke bomb, leaving Peter frustrated. Peter vents to MJ about his failures against these new threats. MJ reassures him, reminding him he's just a little rusty and still grieving over Tony Stark's death. He might not have been a mentor to him, but he was still Peter's friend. Peter joins a police standoff with the demon gang and helps rescue an injured police officer named Officer Davis. A few days later, Officer Davis is honored for his bravery, but the gang attacks the award rally and an explosion kills Officer Davis. Peter is able to save his son Miles Morales. Spider-Man battles Mr. Negative, who traps him in a vision of past traumas. Peter breaks free after confronting Martin Lee, who reveals himself to be Mr. Negative. Martin escapes and steals a dangerous chemical from Oscorp and is going to use it on the city for revenge. At Grand Central Station, Peter fights to stop Martin from releasing this chemical. Their battle moves to a train where Peter defeats Martin and averts disaster. Martin is arrested and is sent to the raft, but before he was taken, Peter tells him, "If you help someone, you help everyone, and I'm going to help you." Peter returns to MJ saying this whole thing with Martin Lee is over. MJ smiles knowing that even though Martin has been put away, this whole hero thing will never be over. The mid-credit scene shows Peter returns to the Feast Center and says he will help out in any way he can. And while he was there, Miles shows up asking if this was a place where he could help people in need. The post-credit scene shows Logan is at a bar having a drink and smoking on a cigar. A woman walks up to the bar asking if this seat was taken. She sits down and tries talking with Logan. Logan doesn't seem very interested, but notices she is carrying a strange red stone. Our next project in Phase 4 is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, taking place in 2024. After Steve Rogers passes the mantle of Captain America and S.H.I.E.L.D. to Sam Wilson, Sam doubts his worthiness and donates it to a museum. Meanwhile, a group called the Serpent Society emerges, causing chaos with the goal of uniting the world under one order as it was during the blip. The government monitors the group and surprisingly gives the shield to John Walker, announcing him as the new Captain America. Bucky confronts Sam after giving up the shield, and Sam admits he didn't know they would assign it to someone else. Bucky has been undergoing therapy for past trauma, struggles with Sam's decision, feeling it undermines Steve's trust in both of them. Sam and Bucky team up when they get a lead on the Serpent Society member and are unexpectedly aided by John Walker during the mission. Walker offers to work together, but Sam and Bucky refuse due to their resentment over the shield situation. During a therapy session, Bucky challenges Sam about giving up the shield, revealing his own insecurities about Steve's judgment. Sam admits he made a mistake, and they agree to partner up until the Serpent Society is defeated. They systematically capture members of the Serpent Society, leaving only their leader, King Cobra. In Madripoor, John Walker meets a man who has created an almost perfect super soldier serum and was going to give it to the Serpent Society. Walker kills him and takes the serum for himself to become what he thinks is the true Captain America. Sam and Bucky notice Walker's enhanced strength and realize that he has taken some kind of serum. When they find King Cobra, he surrenders without resistance, which raises suspicion. It's revealed the Serpent Society planned to be imprisoned so they could stage a breakout and seize control of S.H.I.E.L.D. During the escape attempt, Walker kills a member in a fit of rage and flees, haunted by his actions. Sam and Bucky pursue Walker, and after a brutal fight, they reclaim the shield and leave Walker defeated. Time passes as Sam trains with the shield, Walker is stripped of his title, and Bucky gifts Sam with the new Captain America suit from Wakanda. Walker is approached by Allegra DeFontaine, who recruits him for covert missions under a new identity. When the Serpent Society attack world leaders, Sam and Bucky fight back, with John unexpectedly joining the battle. After defeating King Cobra, Sam declares himself Captain America and urges world leaders to make better choices or face worse threats in the future. The mid-credit scene shows Sam Wilson is continuing to practice with the shield at the Avengers compound as he was waiting for Thunderbolt Ross to show up, who was asking him about starting up the Avengers again. The post-credit scene shows at the New York Sanctum, a knock on the door gets the attention of Doctor Strange. When he opened the door, a man named Johnny Blaze was asking Doctor Strange for help with Mephisto. Now, this next group, I don't really know too much about them, so I really hope you guys enjoy it as we go to the final project of Phase 4, Midnight Suns, which takes place in 2025. Mordo has left Kamar-Taj after losing faith in Doctor Strange due to his use of the Time Stone. He encountered a mysterious man whose skull ignited with hellfire, revealing himself as Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider, aka Johnny Blaze, explained that his powers came from a deal with Mephisto. Mephisto had tasked him with hunting down people who had been dusted, angry that their souls had vanished from hell. Intrigued, Mordo asked Johnny to summon Mephisto to see if he could strike his own deal. Mephisto was impressed with Mordo's dark views on stealing magic and offered him a new deal, releasing Johnny. As a part of the deal, Mephisto ordered Mordo to kill Johnny and take his powers. Johnny escaped and fled to the New York Sanctum to seek help from Doctor Strange. Mordo attacked the Sanctum, leading to a fierce battle between him, Strange, and Ghost Rider. Realizing Mordo's strength had grown under Mephisto's influence, Strange decided they needed allies. They began a global search and found Moon Knight, Blade, and Man-Thing to aid their cause. The group tracked Mephisto and Mordo to a bar where they were targeting souls of the Dusted. Already at the bar were Logan and Elsa Bloodstone fighting off demons. The heroes joined forces in a massive battle, ultimately killing Mordo to break his pact with Mephisto. Though enraged, Mephisto was banished back to Hell, and the heroes vowed to reunite if mystical threats rose again. The mid-credit scene shows Stephen Grant waking up in his apartment wondering what happened, as he is now in New York wondering how he got there. The post-credit scene shows us when the Avengers went back in time, we see Loki escaping with the Tesseract. He lands in the desert as a strange group of people in black and orange armor arrive and arrest Loki for creating a branch on the sacred timeline. Well, folks, that is my take on Phase 4 of the Infinity Saga, which this is the end of my Infinity Saga. We will go into the Multiverse Saga in the next phase. I do want to say thank you to everyone who has been very, very patient with me to get this next episode out. This one took very long to do because of Infinity War and Endgame. I believe my Endgame story is like 5.5 pages long and over 3,000 words. I poured every ounce of like creative juices into this one. I know that some of you guys have commented saying that my structuring for certain projects doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and to be honest, you're right. Some of my structures don't make sense, but in some cases I put certain projects here because I either want to tell a very specific story or I want to have it be connected in some way. I think that should be one of the key takeaways here, is that I'm trying to make a connection. And in some cases, I'm trying to either make a connection through the end credits or the movies. Most of the mid credit and post credit scenes are meant to set up the next project or the next couple projects. So that's why I'm specifically making end credits and post credit scenes that will lead to a new movie later on. Some of you guys have been commenting, is there a movie release schedule for these projects, or was there a movie release date things that I had planned for this? I did have that planned in the beginning of this when I was making this whole series, but I decided to not do that. So maybe what I'll do is I will make a community post saying all of the movies that I have here and like when the movies come out. But for right now, you're not going to see it in the actual video. It's just going to be a community post. So stay tuned for that. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this phase and enjoyed the Infinity Saga. And let me know which project was your favorite and least favorite. And if you guys want to see more videos like this, click on this video right here. I think you'll enjoy it. And with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.